Back to My Garden, episode 55.
Welcome to Back to My Garden. Discover your passion for gardening. Here's Dave Ledoux.
Hello, garden lover. It's Dave. Do you want to save time, save money, and have your most incredible garden ever? Get free tips, strategies, and gardening techniques from amazing gardeners around the world. Join the VIP club for free today at www.backtomygarden.com/VIP. Are you concerned about toxic chemicals, GMOs, and frankenfood? Don't panic. Grow organic. Discover my new resource for organic gardeners. Go to www.backtomygarden.com/myorganic. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you listen to this. I'm Dave Ledoux, and welcome to another edition of Back to My Garden. And today we're going all the way to the west coast of the United States. Shawn is passionate about organic gardening and teaching others how to grow vegetables. His company helps people with hard water and chlorine and impurity problems, and he's the author of Organic Vegetable Gardening, The Natural Way 101, How to Turn Your Brown Thumbs Green. We got tons to talk about. I want to welcome to the show from Carlsbad, California, Mr. Shawn Studer. Hi, Shawn.
Hey, Dave. Thank you very much for having me on.
I am glad you're here. I've given you a brief introduction. I want to hear your stories, and I know our listeners want to get to know you as well. Can you take a minute or two and just share with our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into gardening?
Yes, I started when a house I bought when I was living back in Phoenix. This is back in the somewhere around 1996 or 97. And when I bought the house, I had a guy come in and do the landscaping, part of the landscaping. And I always had or opposed using any kind of chemicals in doing anything really. And so I wanted to make sure it was done organically. And I really didn't know anything about it, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so we did that, and it just I started there, and I kept learning from there. So it's mostly starting in the landscape. I didn't start growing vegetables for many years later.
Fantastic. Now, Shawn, we get to visit here, but we got people listening to us driving in their car.
Oh, cool.
And we don't want them to take notes because it's probably a bad idea. So keep both hands on the wheel. I'm going to put all of Shawn's links and resources in the show notes at BackToMyGarden.com. Make sure you follow Shawn on social media. He's on Twitter at Body Mind Soil. And he's got an incredible blog at www.bodymindandsoil.com. And that's also links to his different corporate endeavors, which we're going to talk to in his book. Shawn, where do we begin? Do we want to talk about, maybe we'll talk about your company that helps people with impurities and getting good water. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, that'd be great. And how we got started with this company was me and my partner were meeting with a water manufacturer about 5 years ago. And no, I'm sorry, it was about 4 years ago. And we were meeting with them talking about home systems. And a few days before, I had made some compost tea. And if you've ever made compost tea, you have to use dechlorinated water because the chlorine will kill the good microbes that you're trying to actually brew and grow. And so it's a real hassle to fill buckets up and wait for chlorine, which is a gas, to escape. And so when we're there talking to the guy, he happened to be an engineer. He owned the company. I asked him, hey, can you make me a hose-in filter that can take out the chlorine and chloramines out of the tap water? He goes, yeah, sure. And that was on a Friday, and that Monday I had a prototype. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, great, how many can you make? And we started a business, and the name Body, Mind, and Soil just came to me. And we started from there. And what I was also doing at the time was I had a business installing raised bed organic vegetable gardens.
You had a business installing raised bed organic gardens.
Right.
Where have you been all my life?
Oh, I just well, I've been here. Where have you been?
I know, I'm way up here. I moved 4 yards of soil last week by wheelbarrow.
We did 6 the other day.
Oh my gosh. Now, the minute you made the filter, I'm sure 100 guys go, oh, man, I had the same idea. You beat me to it.
Could be. You know what? You're right. And the thing is, once I made it, then I actually started a little while. It took me, probably 6 months before I actually started doing research and say, I wonder if anybody else is doing this. And there are a couple other people doing it. But and during that search, I found out, well, the other people that are doing it, the other companies, there's a much inferior product because they use plastic hose-in fittings on their filter, and ours has brass. We built ours; it's built to last, and it has replaceable media. So we came on the market; we had the best one immediately.
Fantastic, and so your business grew, and now you have multiple layers of your business, and
right, it is. Yeah, it started out with the organic vegetable gardening, doing that. And it's built from there.
Why is it so important to take out the chlorine? Does anybody, you explained it well, for the compost tea, you don't want to kill the microbes.
Right.
So does that mean all of our gardeners out there, I'm thinking like people with container gardens on their patio, they're just running it out of the city tap, aren't they?
Right. And that's a great question. Why do we need to do that? And we put chlorine in the water to kill bacteria, the harmful bacteria that can hurt us. Well, we also have good bacteria we call microbes in the soil. And those microbes we want as part of the soil biology. And we want to not only protect that, but feed and stimulate it. And when you're dumping chlorinated water onto that good soil, it's killing a lot of the good microbes. So it sets it back. It's not going to completely kill it, but it does set it back. And so rather than having a good foundation and building on there each time you dump in chlorinated water, it does harm it. And it also harms the plants because this chlorine, if you're getting chlorine on the plant leaves, it can burn them, but it's just not good for the plants either.
Do you ship the filter nationally or internationally?
Yep, all over. Yep, we sure. Not international yet. I'm looking into doing that. I got to set some other things up first, but we want to get into the international market also. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we have a sale on right now. Plus, you get free shipping.
So for those of you listening globally, we're in now 26 countries, Shawn. If you're entrepreneurial, reach out to Shawn. We have listeners in Japan and all through Europe at bodymindandsoil.com. Who knows? Maybe we can hook you up with somebody internationally.
Absolutely. And we need to do that.
You started gardening in Phoenix, Arizona, and now you garden in Southern California, two of the driest places I can think of.
Well, in between that, though, I had moved back to Dallas where I grew up in the year 2000. And that's where I really started learning about organic gardening. And there's a guy there who's on the radio on the weekends. He's actually heard in 200-something markets around the country. And I learned most of what I know from him. And by listening to him, I'd call into his show, and then just applying it in my landscape. And then I started growing vegetables, and I started applying and seeing the results there. And I became very, very passionate it took me years to realize that this was my passion. I'd always heard people say, oh, you need to find your passion and turn that into a business. I was like, well, I don't know what my passion is, but my neighbors could tell you what it is because I wouldn't shut up when it came to talking about organic gardening. So,
I guess during your career, you've seen people make some terrible mistakes when it comes to, I guess, putting poison right into our environment.
All the time, especially out here where I am. These landscapers, everything they do is destructive. We're in a situation now here in Southern California where we're in a drought. It's critical, and everything the landscapers do is harmful to the landscape because of the practices. They come in, they call them the mow, blow, and go guys. They come in here and they mow the grass too short if they do have grass. They rake out all the leaves from underneath the bushes and the trees, which are valuable to remain there and to not only act as a mulch, but to return the nutrients to the soil, which also feeds that soil biology. And they take all that away. So they stop the nutrient cycle, and they leave the ground bare. They train the homeowners into thinking this bare ground looks nice. And to me, I look at it and go, it looks horrible. It's very sterile. And what happens is the soil becomes dry, more compact. Water can't soak in, so it runs off. So the homeowners are using 30 to 50% more watering on the landscape than they should have to if they were following the organic program.
Wow. In some of these markets, water is more expensive than oil, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's valuable. I mean, we can't drink oil. We have to have water anyway. But water is, is, of course, the crucial ingredient when it comes to gardening and growing.
I was telling my wife that I was getting to interview you today and told her about your book. We keep running into friends who say, "Oh, I kill everything I try to grow." And that brown thumb philosophy. And once you start to believe it,
yeah.
And so these people have labeled themselves as non-gardeners.
Right. That's a great point. You're right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak.
Talk to me about your book. How did you dream it up, and was it as hard to write as
Not
I
really.
imagine? No?
Once I started, it just really flowed, and I just took on my experiences, everything I've learned, and tried to. And I wrote it from somebody. I tried to write as much as I could for somebody who has a brown thumb, who doesn't know where to start, and take them step by step. And this is using the raised bed garden system or pots, and I take them step by step of how to do it. And we also talk about the soil biology and how it all starts with the soil. It's all about the soil. And then, and I talk a little bit also about why people think they have a brown thumb. It's usually because if you have a plant indoors and they say, "Oh, I always kill it." Well, it's because they treat that plant like an inanimate object. They don't understand that plant is alive. And it grows by the attention we give it, like all plants do. The more attention we give them, the better they do grow. And they have done studies on that, and the data is in, and that is true. And just the same, by ignoring those plants, what happens is that attention, that energy that they need is not there. And they end up basically dying. They end up looking bad, so what happens is they overwater because they think they need more water, and that usually is the death knell,
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about your philosophy. If you overwater with poison in the water and they get wet feet, and then you neglect to feed the soil,
right, or feed it, the stuff like, well, I won't mention the name of it, but let's just say it's a miracle anything grows in it.
Understood.
But yeah, it's just not knowing how to feed it, how to water it. And that comes from, you'll know that the more attention you give to it, even a houseplant, when you're giving that attention, it changes your whole philosophy of that plant. It's a living thing. And you pay more attention to how you are watering it and whether you're feeding it or not. And you'll look at, okay, what do I need to feed? You'll ask questions of people, how do I do this? Instead of just stick it in the corner and hopefully it'll live.
I wanted to ask you, Shawn, you're so busy on the work side of gardening. You have a company and you have distribution and you're teaching and writing. Did you get to garden this year? And if so, what was your garden like?
Yeah. Oh, I have to garden. It's part of my therapy, which another great thing about gardening is it's the best therapy you can possibly get. And so I have a vegetable garden I grow on right now, and in between I pulled up some summer stuff that now getting ready to plant my fall crops. And so I'm doing stuff for clients too, so that helps too. I love getting my hands in the soil and just growing things and planting seeds and planting plants and watching them grow. It's just all part of who I am and what I do. My mission is really to help people not only learn how to grow food, but to stop using chemicals. Because we have to stop that first, and then the next step is now let's start regenerating our soils and bringing the health of the soils back, because that's the foundation on which all the plants and trees grow. Without healthy soil, they don't grow well, and we suffer from it.
Shawn, I've been getting to chat with gardeners, and I ask them about growing the wrong thing for your zone. I was just talking with Amy Andrejovich up in Minneapolis, and she's in Zone 4B.
Right.
And then Janet Cassidy, she's a gardener in Delaware, Ohio, Zone 6A. Shawn, what zone are you in?
Oh, I wish you wouldn't ask me that question because I don't really pay attention to that.
Question mark.
If you're not sure, and that's it, it's you can do by zone, but if you want to know what you can plant, there's a couple things you can do in your zone. You can go check and see if you have a Master Gardeners Association in your area. They'll tell you what, usually have a chart of what you can grow. Or go to your local nursery, not the big box stores, but your local nursery. They're going to have plants that are made for your area, that grow in your area. So that's, if you're not sure about your zone, just do that. And, for me, it's like, I think we're in zone 4 or something, but again, I guess I've been here long enough to know what works and what doesn't. And I have a list of vegetables that work and what days to plant them. I mean, not what months to plant what. So,
your summer crop.
Mm-hmm.
We have listeners like in Europe and England, so they're going to get a thrill out of this. What are some of the unusual things that you're able to grow in where you live?
Unusual.
You can't grow bananas or peanuts or things.
Well,
like
some
that.
people do.
Some people do. Yeah.
Some people are trying to grow more tropical. You have to be aware, that they usually require more water. So a lot of people are getting away from some of that stuff and growing, the stuff that, as far as edible stuff, it's usual, tomatoes, cucumbers, squashes. There's not anything unusual, I think, that grows here unless somebody has a unusual variety they get from somewhere else.
I just had an aha moment, because when you take something out of the Caribbean and put it in Southern California, sure, it's warm enough. I never thought about the water implication.
Right, you have water, and you have different soil conditions. So, maybe the soil is more acidic over there, where here the soil is very alkaline. We have a lot of clay soil. It's very alkaline.
Wow, interesting.
So you have to consider the soil. And the good thing about raised bed gardening is it doesn't matter what your soil conditions are, because with raised bed you're going to bring in some good soil anyway. So it's not crucial to know what your pH is in your soil unless you're digging your yard up. But if you're bringing in your own soil with raised beds, then that's not a problem you have to think about or worry about.
You mentioned you're putting in your fall garden, and that made me smile, because ours is put to bed now. But what does a fall garden look like?
Oh, here, you see, you can grow more here in the winter than you can in the summer, because you have a lot more different lettuces, because they like cool weather. The kales grow here year-round, so as do beets and carrots. But, the broccoli, cabbages, cauliflower, sugar snap peas, what else? Kohlrabi, turnips, a lot of the root vegetables, and all the lettuces. That's a great thing about it. In the summer you can grow tomatoes. It's a little more difficult to grow lettuce because they tend to bolt in the heat. And you have good tomatoes and other crops that you want to make a nice salad out of, but it's hard to grow lettuce. So I did plant some lettuce a week ago, so it's going. I still have some tomatoes going too.
I've become this evangelist for a thing called a Malabar spinach.
I'm not familiar with that.
It said on the package it'll grow 4 feet high.
Oh.
And so I said, you know what, I'm going to make a little teepee in the bed and let it climb up the teepee.
Mm-hmm. And
it grew like 6.5, almost 7 feet long.
What were the leaves like?
The size of my head.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if durable is the right word, but it handled heat. It was sturdy. And we finally let it go to seed, and it's got this pretty pink seed pods on it.
Right.
So Malabar. I think we got it from Baker Creek.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have their catalog. They're a great seed company.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. The whole heirloom movement, it's really stringent. It's not easy to grow seeds for an heirloom company. Right.
No, you're right. And we need to bring that back because, look at all the different varieties that they have and all the hundreds or thousands that we've already lost. So we need to bring more. That's one thing I tell people is try to plant heirlooms as much as you can.
When I looked at your geography, California, obviously the epic drought, the catastrophic drought. What's the bee conversation like in your part of the world?
Well, it is a problem. And There are there's some movements of people trying to ban these pesticides. And we still have them here. It's a bigger problem, I think, up in Northern California where they have a lot of almond trees. It's really getting hit really hard because of the bees have been dying. In the neighborhoods where I am, we have bees here. That's a good thing. Not as many as we should, and sometimes we have to hand pollinate squashes because they're not getting pollinated.
Wow.
So, and I'm teaching my clients that because they'll say, well, I'm getting it, my squashes are starting to grow, then they just die. I say, yeah, they're not getting pollinated. You have to hand pollinate them if you don't have the pollinators around. So, but the good thing is there's more and more people are getting educated about that, and we realize, if the bees collapse, then humanity collapses.
This viewpoint of every bug is bad, kill all bugs with poison.
Yeah, chemical companies love that, don't they? And their chemicals do. Yeah. They even label weeds a bad thing. And some of the most nutritious plants we have, like dandelion, is they consider a weed, whereas other people grow it for the nutrient value. And so they label things like that so they can sell more chemicals. That's really the purpose of GMOs. When it comes to when they kind of round up ready crops, so they can just sell more chemicals to spray on the crops.
One of the things I love about this podcast is the listeners kind of think how you and I think, and at the end of the day, we get to vote with our wallet.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's as a matter of fact, I wrote a blog just on that, how to really support your local like nurseries instead of going to big box stores. I don't buy any plants or gardening supplies. Well, unless it's tools, but no gardening supplies, because usually the nurseries carry better quality stuff. They know what works in the area. They have usually most of the time they have a better understanding of organic practices. And if you want to know what any store or nursery knows about organics, when you walk in, look at their selection. If they have, like the big box stores have a 3% of their products organic, that tells you how much they know about organics. If you go into a nursery that has 60 to 100% organics, then they know a lot about organics.
For those of you driving, I'll send you a link over to Shawn's blog at Body, Mind, and Soil. I almost said soil. Soul, that's Body, Mind, and Soil. Brilliant name, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very memorable.
It is. You're right.
I just glanced at the clock, Shawn. Our time is rapidly going by. Now is the time in the show where we play a game called 5 Quick Questions. This is your chance to share wisdom and experience with novice gardeners. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
Question number 1. What do you think stops most non-gardeners from even attempting gardening?
Fear of not knowing what to do, how to get started. That's basically it.
In all of your career as a gardener, have you ever planted something that didn't grow?
Oh, yeah. And it usually, if I look back, there's a couple of things when that does happen. It could be plant you got was not good. It may have, and that's a problem sometimes you have. They come with diseases and pests. And it just wasn't a very healthy plant. Not knowing how to pick out a healthy plant when you do go to nurseries. Or planting it wrong. So, yeah, you have that. Even experienced gardeners, that can happen to experienced gardeners.
I remember in our 3rd grade science class, we planted lima beans. Mm-hmm. And one of the kids kept digging up his bean every day to see if it was growing.
Right.
And that's always stuck with me. So many people, myself included, You
have to trust the process.
Exactly.
Mother Nature knows what she's doing.
Question 2. Speaking of Mother Nature, what is the best gardening advice that you've ever received?
It's all about the soil. Once you focus on that, and really if you just try to get some understanding of the soil biology specifically, and how that's working, then everything else will fall into place. You got to remember, you don't feed the plants, you feed the soil. The soil feeds the plants. Because these nutrients and the fertilizers that we put in the soil, they're not in a form that the plant roots can absorb. They have to be broken down by the soil biology in order for those plant roots to absorb them.
Yeah, Shawn, while you've been sharing, I've been taking notes. And I wrote down microbes, and I did a big circle around it. I'm going to write in the show notes about microbes, because if you kill them with the poison, it's bad.
You kill the life of the soil. And that's the problem with, when you look at conventional farming, and you look at big pharma, what they do together. Conventional farming kills the life of the soil. Now the plants are dependent on the chemicals to even survive, much less grow. Well, what happens when we take drugs from big pharma? We kill our immune system. And now we're dependent on big pharma's drugs. It's the same thing. The soil is the immune system for the plants.
I have this conversation with anybody over age 35 or 40, and I say, when you were a kid, do you remember anybody with a peanut allergy?
No.
There was no one in my school with a peanut allergy, and I think one girl had asthma.
Right.
And now, you get a letter and you'll go to jail if you bring peanut butter to school.
Mm-hmm. True.
Where did it come from? One generation, 2 generations.
That's true. It's obvious if you look at it.
Yeah. Number 3. Internet's a big place. You've got a tremendous website at bodymindandsoil.com. Can you recommend 1 or 2 websites, maybe blogs or resource sites for a novice gardener?
Yes. Dirt Doctor, DR for doctor instead of spelled out, dirtdoctor.com. That's the guy back in Dallas I was telling you about that I learned so much from. His name's Howard Garrett, and he's got a lot of great information. Mother Earth News is another good one, especially for beginners. They have a lot of good articles, and on there you can read about.
Fantastic. And again, folks, all those links will be hyperlinked at BackToMyGarden.com. Have to check out Howard's site. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, he's good. He's very, very good.
Number 4. Old-time books, paper books, libraries, and can you recommend a favorite gardening book?
Absolutely. Well, we just talked about microbes. It's called Teaming with Microbes. Let's see if it's right here. My card is by. Hang on just a second. It is by Jeff Lowenfels and Wayne Lewis. And the subtitle is The Organic Gardener's Guide to the Soil Food Web. Excellent book.
Wow, I get a sense that you really like the science of gardening.
Yeah, well, yeah, without getting too scientific, it's really what I love is the life of the soil and understanding the life of the soil, because that's where it all happens. And when we kill the life of the soil, we're dead. There's no way around that.
You're giving me so many aha moments. We had a garden bed this year, and we put, when you plant zucchinis, we planted 3, because, one dies, and then you can get rid of one and have one good one. 3 zucchini plants, all male flowers, not one piece of fruit, no females.
Well, it could have been if you have a phosphorus deficiency, because that really helps with the flowering and fruiting production. It's usually something going on with the soil there.
You got it. My wife said, we better do a chemistry test. And the test tubes with the powders?
Right.
pH was over 8.
Oh, very alkaline.
0 nitrogen, and the NPK was screwed up. It couldn't have been any worse. These zucchinis were so upset they were under protest.
And when that happens, right. And it just ties up. You may have phosphorus in there. It just ties it all up when it's out of balance like that.
Yep. And that's when I got hooked. I said, wow. It's so predictable, measurable, quantifiable. You just got to think. And yeah, it was amazing. And that was a bed where we had grown giant mammoth sunflowers the year before and never amended the soil in that bed.
Yeah. And right. And that could have been it. Just if you're adding good organic matter, compost, and other ingredients that feed the microbes, the soil is going to balance out after a while. That's why you want to protect the soil biology, because it helps balance out the soil to the right kind of pH. It's going to help with your growing of what you need to grow.
Dynamite. Incidentally, your filter. Have you had any stories from flower gardeners or any kind of results that people are seeing visible?
Yes, absolutely. One grower, a commercial grower, I believe they were in Alabama. She told me, she sent me a note saying, "Wow, they're no longer discoloring." I think they were having a problem with discoloration on their tulips or something they were growing, and now that cleaned that up. And other people are talking about how their gardens are growing much better now, and they, it makes it easy for people who make their own compost tea. They're having a lot of success with it.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense. I mean, you think of the poison in municipal water.
Right. And a lot of people don't think about that. If you understand the soil biology, then it starts to click. Like, oh, well, we're putting chlorine in water to kill bacteria. What's that doing to my soil bacteria?
I live on the edge of Lake Erie. I'm on the same parallel as Cleveland, Ohio.
Right.
And we had that crazy hot, wet, odd summer, and a couple of cities had boil water advisories. You couldn't even drink the tap water for a while.
Wow.
Because it gets that bloom algae.
Mm-hmm, the algae, right.
And then to compensate, what do? I'm sure, you're drinking swimming pool water after a while out of your tap.
Well, then they put chloramine in. Chloramine is a combination of chlorine and ammonia. And it doesn't escape as a gas. Oh. Which chlorine will, if you just set a bucket of water out, it'll be all the chlorine will be gone within 24 hours. But chloramine, it doesn't escape. And it's a dissipator. It's even more toxic. So with our filter helps take care of that.
I have a cat, and he's smarter than I am sometimes. He would always drink out of the toilet, not from his water dish.
Yeah.
And then when I switched his water to dechlorinated filtered water, he would finally drink it again.
Right. Animals have a cute sense of smell. And if you drink filtered water long enough and you drink a glass of chlorinated water, you can tell the difference right away. It's hard for me to drink it.
Finally, question number 5. It's a two-parter, kind of a fun one.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing that you would suggest every new gardener to try to grow next season? And the second part is there anything you're going to try to experiment with that you've been thinking about and maybe going to try next year?
For the first part, this is not what I would say. Grow your knowledge. Grow your knowledge, especially the organic practices. That's going to benefit you more. It's not going to help you to try to grow a plant if you don't have that knowledge. So, in the second part, I want to actually start doing more experimentation with compost tea and using that, do some test gardenings where I have one garden with and one garden without, so I can see and document the results.
Whoa, a real A-B split test with photographs.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Right. So I hope that answered your question. Okay, it's not a resident plant. It's the knowledge part is just so important. I
got some compost tea for the first time from Annie Haven. And
the manure tea, right?
Manure tea, yeah. And got some cow and some horse and alfalfa. And,
she has those different varieties. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then she says, make the tea of what you believe in. So some people know cow better than horse manure. And then the flower people. Apparently, if you're a competitive rose or orchid grower or that's your livelihood, you can't fool around. There's money in it. Right.
That's true. And the thing about tea is you got to understand there's also, you can have a bacterial-dominated tea or a fungally-dominated tea or a combination of both. And it depends on what you're growing. Trees do need more fungally dominated. And where plants, like vegetables, do better with bacterial-dominated tea.
You could experiment for years to learn this stuff. It's great having wisdom and teachers, isn't it?
It really is. I love teaching, and I love organic gardening. And those are my two passions I get to combine.
Shawn, our half hour has just flown by. I'm going to send everybody over to your Twitter at BodyMindSoil. And please go check out Shawn's resource website at bodymindandsoil.com. Shawn, you've been an incredible guest.
Thank you, Dave.
I want to let you have the last word to our listeners today. Can you leave them with either a pearl of wisdom or a note of encouragement on their gardening adventures?
Let's see. Your garden is a beautiful metaphor if you're willing to look at it. And all the great teachers, all the great teachings, the great writers have all used gardening as a metaphor. And if you let gardening be a metaphor in your life, where you're growing that and giving it life and stimulating that, you're going to get the same results back for you and your body and your life. So use it as, it's not just a physical growing thing, it's a metaphor for your own life. When you're pulling a weed, you're pulling a weed seed out of negative thoughts out of your mind. So use the garden as a metaphor.
Absolutely brilliant. I am so grateful for your wisdom sharing today, Shawn. Thank you for being on the show.